144 AD, 4038 AM. In this year, Marcion published the first version of the New Testament on record. Marcion was 48 years old, born 96 AD, a man of Pontus, his father a bishop of that church, according to Epiphanius. He was a well-educated man, and some believed him to have been the son of a Briton. That Marcion Marcellus was actually a Druid at Tongres, who influenced the development of the Celtic Church. Some held that he was a Gnostic named Mark, who taught at the Christian Church at Jerusalem. Whatever the case, in this year Marcion brought forth to Rome his New Testament books, written in the Greek language. However, we are told that his Gospel was originally written in Samaritan, and that it was rabbinical. His New Testament consisted of the Gospel and the Apostolicon. Marcion claimed that this Gospel account came from Paul himself, who was a Gnostic. Marcion was a sea captain, and it was probably on his voyages that he became acquainted with Paul's teachings and epistles. Further, his contact with so many different cultures of early Christians is why there are diverse accounts of who he was. He collected 10 of the letters of Paul and published them, but interestingly, Marcion is not aware of any other New Testament writings. The Apostolicon consisted of 10 of Paul's letters as follows: Galatians, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Romans, not the 15th and 16th chapters, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, Ephesians, Colossians, Philemon, Philippians. These were published in this order. The epistles of Paul to Timothy, Titus, and the book of Hebrews were unknown to Marcion. Further, Marcion did not include the book of Acts, 1st and 2nd Peter, James, Jude, or the Revelation. Additionally, Marcion's Gospel was totally devoid of the fantastic. This Gospel version does not mention anything about the birth of Jesus or his childhood, beginning with Jesus' 30th year, the start of his ministry. This Gospel does not mention any miracles performed by Jesus, no John the Baptist, no Mary Magdalene or Judas Iscariot. There is no crucifixion, resurrection, or ascension to heaven. Scholars assert that there is abundant textual evidence to show that the Gospel account of Marcion was the source material for the Gospel of Luke, Matthew, and Mark. Marcion was different from other Gnostics in that he adhered to a literal interpretation of the Holy Scriptures, while the Gnostics were fond of viewing them as allegory. Even his principles of worship differed from the Gnostics. Marcion saw a difference between the God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament, and he held that Jesus was not the promised Messiah. A follower of Paul, Marcion accused the other apostles of perverting the gospel doctrines. There are historians who believe that Marcion was a member of the Therapeutian Brotherhood. By all accounts, his gospel text originated at Antioch in Syria, the cradle of Christianity. Marcion was considered a Christian even by his adversaries. Remarkably though, he had no adversaries until afterward. His enemies contended with him retrospectively. This literally indicates that the Christianity we know today did not exist in 144 AD, but was manufactured later by men who were later compelled to discredit Marcion. This year is 888 years after the Israelites were deported into Assyria in 745 BC. 1. History of the Christian religion and the Church to the year 300. 2. The Christ conspiracy. 3. The Bible fraud. 8. Jesus, God, Man or Myth. 150 AD, 4044 AM. Jewish Rabbi Jose wrote that according to his calculation, the Great Flood transpired in what translates into this calendar as 2103 BC. He was 136 years off from 2239 BC, but this is consistent with the 133 disparity between the modern Jewish calendar and the Annus Mundi. About 150 AD, Justin Martyr wrote 2 apologies defending Christianity. He was a great scholar and historian, long regarded as the most influential of the early church fathers. He sought to prove the divinity of Christ, quoting 300 passages from the Old Testament and almost 100 from apocryphal texts of the New Testament. But strikingly, Justin never mentions the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. In his dialogue with Trypho, he attempted to show that Jesus was predicted in the Old Testament, not mentioning any of the 4 Gospels, though he does cite the apocryphal Gospels of Basilides and Apelles, as well as the memoirs of the Apostles. This was almost 120 years after the crucifixion event in 33 AD, and still there is no historical hint of the existence of these four Gospels. This is the 1080th year of the divided kingdom. 1. The incredible discovery of Noah's Ark. 2. The Christ conspiracy. 3. Jesus, God, man or myth. 161 AD, 4055 AM. A council of Christian leaders at Alexandria assembled and formally pronounced that there was an historical Jesus. Thus the incarnation became formally accepted doctrine. This council would not have been required had it been the general widespread belief that Jesus existed. 1. The Christ conspiracy.